edit everything. So we just usually hit record, and if for any reason we need to edit something out, we'll take a break or a pause, and then I'll just edit that part out. Let's see.
Is the audio okay? Would it be better if I got like a headset myself?
It sounds good.
It sounds good to me. How do we sound to you?
Oh, fine.
Sweet, sweet. And we'll, hey, I'm Heath, by the way, Corey, good to meet you.
Hey.
Jamie.
So we'll take a break. We'll pause like right when we, after we do a quick introduction of you, we'll do a disclaimer.
Mm-hmm.
And then we'll take a pause for the commercial that we're going to put in later. And then we'll get into it.
Okay.
And I'm gonna basically touch, so you know, I emailed you earlier. So we're going to touch on your little bit of childhood, because you talked to me about high school.
Right.
And let me know if you're not okay with it. We're cool. Okay. So
open book.
okay, great. Nuke school into the fast attack submarine.
Yep.
And I might ask you what signs you gave that made the chief mess get involved.
And we actually just got a maybe not so much a question, but a comment for the fleet from the Ask the Chief page that kind of goes along with that. But it's just talking about how we need to pay more attention to our shipmates. Yeah. And so maybe we can read that comment, because they just posted it about 43 minutes ago. But you know, being in the Navy, we're just all competing for our evals, and we need to be more of a team, you know. So maybe we can talk about that before we go into what signs you had that led to the chief's mess, you know, saying, hey, no, we're, you know, this is not just a I'm fine moment, you know. And then what else did you?
Oh yeah, so the chief's mess get involved, and then you know what happened. I'll go, just let us lead it, and we'll go into what happened after that. Talk about your limb due, and then how you still had issues that you lived with for 20 years.
Right.
And then what actually, and we'll get into it, what actually made you, where you're like right now, you're probably going through divorce and you're still smiling.
Yeah.
You know, what led you to that end, right? Where, you know, you're going through, you know, probably one of the hardest things you ever have to go through, and you're still smiling. And talk about your sailors, you know, your open book with your sailors, and they're coming to you for help. Mm-hmm. And that's awesome. And that's what people are scared to do. And I might get in there and talk about how I'm going to do that. But like I said, if you're not comfortable, you will stop. But you know, there's a big stigma about getting kicked out of the Navy with dealing with mental health issues.
Yeah, we have a question here for that. So
yeah,
just what types of issues are okay to say are conducive to service, and which conditions will get you the boot. So
okay.
And I'll probably go in, as we're talking about the 20 years after the sub, you talk about the boys kept you from trying to do that again. Mm-hmm. And you know, we might get into that a little bit too.
Sure, absolutely, that's fine.
Awesome, Corey. Like I said, I'm going to use it because this is try to be the most respectful as possible in this situation, because you know, not only for you, but other people listening. You know.
Right.
Yeah, we're just so excited to have you on, and for you to really just tell your story.
Yeah.
And like, I know Heath kind of scripted it a little bit, but we may just let you riff and you know, go tell your story, because it's more about you being able to say, hey, I'm still a chief, I'm still in, and I'm struggling, and anybody that's out there that needs the help, you can get the help and stay in, you know. So I think that's the feel I feel like we really need to go for, to help somebody that's out there listening. So I know, babe, that you have a lot of questions and scripted and stuff, but if we go off and you riff in a different way, it's completely fine.
I'm definitely not going to stop you. You know, definitely. So if you got some stuff and you want to get out, you get it out, dude. Mm-hmm. And we'll just sit here and just watch the magic happen, you know. How do you pronounce your last name? How do you pronounce your last name, Corey?
Herget.
Herget. Okay, so we introduce you, Herget. Corey
Mhm.
Herget, Chief Corey Herget.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So y'all ready?
I'm ready. You ready, Corey?
Good to go.
All right. Here we go. 3, 2, 1. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the E14 podcast. I'm Jamie Britt.
And I'm Heath Britt.
And together we are E14. And today with us, he's trying to do a drum roll in case you couldn't hear. Go ahead.
We have my brother, Chief Corey Herget, all the way from Virginia, right, Corey?
That's right.
All the way from Virginia, USA. Super excited to having you, man. Thank you so much, brother, for coming on and sharing your story with us. So
We got another ET on the show, so I'm outnumbered right now.
this is going to be the best show ever, just because we have two ETs on it.
No, thank you so much for joining us. Before we get started, let me go ahead and do a disclaimer. The views and opinions expressed on this podcast are those of our own and not the United States Navy or our respective commands.
You know what that means, right?
Go ahead.
You can take it or leave it.
See, he wants to make a shirt because he says this every show. And he's like, we should make a take it or leave it shirt. And I'm like,
Do you like that, Corey? It's a good idea, dude, right?
I think it's all right. Yeah.
Yeah,
No.
see, outnumbered.
Outnumbered.
Real quick, Corey, can you introduce yourself to us?
Oh, absolutely. So I'm a Chief Corey Herget. I joined back in January of 2003. And just a quick backstory of my career, I came in as a nuke. I was on a fast attack sub for a little while. Then I went to Marmac, and then I went out in the fleet on a frigate as an ET, and then went to Washington State, Whidbey Island, where I served at a NICTAMS detachment up there, NICTAMS PAC Puget Sound. While I was there, I got chosen to go IA over to Africa and spent almost a year there. Came back and then got orders to a dive unit, the Mudsu 2 out here in Little Creek, where we deployed back and forth to the Middle East, Bahrain mainly. And now I'm over at Training Support Center, Hampton Roads at Damneck.
Nice.
Nice.
That's a very versatile career.
Yeah, very, very diverse.
And we're going to dive deep into Corey's story after a word from our sponsors. All right, welcome back, everybody. I got my brother here, Corey from over at Damneck, Virginia. And Corey, you've struggled with mental.
Well, let's go ahead and tell everybody what our topic is.
Oh
right?
yeah. Let's do that.
We're starting this 4-part series, and thank you so much for being our first guest. But the 4-part series is called "To Hell with the Stigma" because this is May, the Mental Health Awareness Month, and we really want to just kind of let sailors share their stories and help somebody maybe. And we're going to do this in 4 parts. So this is part 1 of that.
Yeah, thank you so much for being our first guest, man. This means a lot to us. But
Yeah.
Oh, sure.
as we talked before, you have struggled with mental illness through your career. I want to start from the beginning. So let us know about kind of your childhood, a little touch on your childhood a little bit.
Oh, absolutely. So growing up, I was always just a little bit odd, kind of out there, as most tech rates, ETs, ITs, and such are a little different.
Hey.
Unique. But I had some friends. I was kind of kept myself mostly, and basically while in high school, I was dealing with lots of different stress and depression and angst, and just growing up, as we all do, and it got really bad, and I was so my depression at the time was so bad that I really didn't know what to do. I looked at everyone else and said, why does no one else seem to feel this way? There has to be something wrong with me. And thinking very literally, best way to cure something is to get rid of it. Well, if my life hurts, I should probably just get rid of it. And I had my wisdom teeth pulled, and I took basically, I was storing my Vicodin. And I decided at one point, I just had a bad day and I said, I'm done with this. So I went and I had a whole plan. It was very just, thought out. I was going to basically take a handful of Vicodin, draw a hot bath, cut my wrists, and that would be it. The problem is the Vicodin hit before I got a chance really to grab the knife, and I kind of just went to sleep. But my head was still above the water. So I just sat there, and then I kind of came to and immediately went to the toilet and got rid of the Vicodin because I was feeling very sick.
Yeah.
And went to sleep. And next morning, I just said, all right, well, next time it's on the back burner. At least I know kind of what it's like. And then it didn't really happen again.
Yeah. So what age was that about?
It was about 17.
17? Okay. So you were junior, senior in high school, I'm assuming.
Yes.
Then a year or two, then you went through high school and joined the Navy, right?
I was right out of high school.
Okay. So tell us a little about, went through boot camp in Great Lakes, I'm assuming.
Yes.
Then what did you do after that?
At that point, I came in as a nuke and went through A school and power school and prototype, and I was not the best student. I was actually helping other people learn the stuff, but when it came time to testing, I would just do horrible. And
Okay.
I went to a couple of different was it ARB, the Academic Review Board. Went to a couple of those, and they kept me in because they saw I was trying. I just wasn't good at the tests. But went through the pipeline, barely made it, and then they put me on a fast attack, the Hyman G. Rickover right here over in Norfolk. It's gone now, and I was on board for almost 2 years. And while on board, just before reporting, went back home, started talking to an old friend of mine, and I've known her for years, and we, just kind of clicked and started going out, and I asked her to marry me. And so she came out to Virginia, and she was there with me while I was on board the submarine.
Wow. Yeah, no, I was, so I just want to kind of reverse back because we heard about what went on in high school, and then boom, you're on a submarine. But this whole time, as you're joining the Navy and you're going to boot camp and all of this stuff, was that thought still on the back burner? Were you still waiting for that next time?
It was always like in my pocket, kind of. It was really back there. I mean, going through boot camp and nuke school, I was so focused on what I had to do next. What I had to study for the next test. I had to make sure I got my rack squared away. I had to make sure I got the cadence down. So boot camp, you're busy. So get my mind off of it. And then while going through nuke school, it's just study 24/7. And then afterwards, going onto the on the submarine, you're very busy. So my mind was always had distractions to where I didn't notice, even though I knew it was there, I didn't have to address the elephant in the room.
Okay, so as far as the stress goes, it was almost a good thing that all that stress was there to keep you distracted from the way you were feeling.
It wasn't until I was told that I would be augmented, which you miss part of the deployment, to go to a school that the sub needed me. They needed so many people to be qualified for 2N, and they were going to send me to school. And I figured that's a good time because I'm going to kind of get my head wrapped around like what's going on. I was also drinking a lot at the time. I would come home, I would crash on the couch and take a nap without meaning to, wake up and start drinking Jack and Cokes.
Wow.
That was almost every day.
And did you tell anybody you were drinking? Did your shipmates notice a change in you?
It was no, because I would put on the mask, because it was, if I, especially on a sub where it's, a bunch of, back in the day, it's a bunch of, hard guys just doing the work, and, didn't have time for that. So, and to put the burden onto the crew by saying I have a problem, that would take me away from the work, and that would put that work as a burden on someone else, on top of having to do all the admin work for me doing what I had to do.
So essentially you were just in silence, suffering in silence.
Suffering in silence, putting on we wear many masks as human beings. And then when you want to be a top performer, and everybody deals with issues, right? We all deal with our own. You put on that other mask. So we're wearing a lot of masks, especially if you're trying to be a top performer in a competitive place like the U.S. Navy. Yeah, so let's definitely, yeah. So let's get into, so you asked your girlfriend at the time to marry you.
Mm-hmm.
And where were you at again? You were in Virginia on the Rickover?
Correct.
Okay, cool. So what happened on the Rickover where you started having, did you start having ideologies again? Depression?
I did. It was the first time, actually, I was already having kind of a, I was down, but I was tired. I was busy. I was just trying to go day by day by day. And it wasn't until I went through my board to get my fish, to get my warfare, and I didn't do too good. And rather than think about what I need to study, and okay, I thought I was ready for the board, I wasn't. Instead, in my mind, it made sense to go into my rack, shut the curtain, and I then started cutting myself with no intent to actually do anything, but just to bring myself to that point, it was almost cathartic.
Right. So basically punish yourself for not doing better on the board.
Correct.
Yeah.
Because I thought I didn't see myself at that time as really a person. It was how I became my own whipping boy. Gotcha.
Definitely. I know that Dolphins is that's one of the real warfare PMs that stayed true from the beginning to now. It's a tough board from what I hear. I've never heard anybody say it was easy.
It is.
Definitely.
It's actually the very first warfare that was ever put out.
Right. Definitely. So what happened after that? So where'd you, after the self-mutilation, the cutting, did it get worse?
It got, I was in a different frame of mind, I would say, as far as if I just knew I had to keep going. But I was also waiting for something to happen to where I knew it would have been too much and I would have fallen over the edge. So I was basically at the edge. I didn't have a plan to jump over and actually finish what I started, but I was waiting for the wrong gust of wind, the wrong something to come into my life to ruin that.
And so here's where I am trying to just wrap my head around this, because we've all had friends or shipmates that have gone through this, and everybody says, we didn't see the signs. We didn't, when we train to this, there's signs that you're supposed to look out for, but you were just wearing a mask to show no signs. So as small as a community is on the sub, how did they not know something was going on? Or did they know? Did somebody close to you know?
No one knew until I was basically something happened to where I was my quals were pulled. I was basically acting immature on watch.
Okay.
And my quals were pulled. They said, you're not going to school. You're making the full deployment. We leave in 2 weeks. Hope you're ready. And I was also dealing with that point just 2 weeks prior to that, that my wife was pregnant with our first child and then had a miscarriage.
Oh, wow.
Wow. So that just doubled it up for you.
Right.
Double the stress over everything.
Wow. And then
was-
you're going under the water on
Yeah.
deployment. So you're not even like sailing
And
out in
then
the
like
sun.
on submarines, it's different. You get your silence pretty much to get PD, periscope depth. I mean, just when you get all your message traffic in, send the email out or whatnot. So if you're
Right.
under the water, there's no outside communication at all.
No, I would get emails. Basically, so if the sub was on the top, it would stream the wire out. It would send and receive traffic, and then when it dove down, that was my chance to respond to any emails I got. So if I type something on, let's say, Monday, and it doesn't come up until a Thursday, that's when it gets sent out. And then when I get something, it could be 2-3 days old, and so it's a constant misalignment when you're trying to have a discussion with someone.
Oh yeah, you could be in knee deep into something, and then all of a sudden you're not going to hear nothing or do anything for another 4 or 5 days.
Right.
That's terrible.
Yeah.
I never dealt with that. I can't imagine that.
It had to have been hard. So how did you deal with stress on that deployment?
It was, well, I showed up just a little bit after deployment, and then when they said that you're going to go on this upcoming deployment, dealing with not too many people knew I was married, let alone that she miscarried, because we were already planning on getting married, but once we found out she was pregnant, immediately did the put in DEERs and everything like that to make sure we could get medical. And then it wasn't until about a month and a half later that she miscarried. And it was at that point, with her miscarrying and the stress already on the sub, and then they told me that that's it, you're making the deployment, everything that you had planned as far as like a little kind of mental vacation, which I was just keeping that to myself as a way to kind of clear my head. And then I broke down. I was talking to my LPO and I said, here's what's going on. I've done this. I showed him my arm. My wife just had this, and I emptied everything out to him. And the reason that there weren't any signs before is because something that they don't really talk about a lot is if someone wants to kill themselves, they want to commit suicide, they're going to do it. They're going to hide it. And it's important for these people to know that there's so many other ways. It's for a permanent solution to a temporary problem.
Right.
And that's how I was dealing it for so long, and no one noticed because I kept it hidden.
Wow.
Like how so you shared your information with your LPO.
Right.
I mean, you let him have it, right? The self-cutting, the feelings in your head. I'm sure you shared that your wife just had a miscarriage and everything, and is stressing you out. So what happened after that?
After that, it was actually on a duty day, and it wasn't until the next day that he told my chief about what I had said. And I was then pulled in the chief's mess. And at the time, it was somewhat treated as I didn't get my way, so I'm sad. And I was just trying to get away off the ship, or off the boat.
And honestly, that was a common stigma back then.
Right.
I used to hear that a lot as a younger junior sailor, E5, E4, E5, that people would do that just to get out of deployment.
Absolutely. Yeah. And this was back in 08,
Yeah.
09, something like that.
Okay. And you've been on how long you been on the sub then?
Was coming up on 2 years.
2 years. So you've been there a little while.
A little bit.
Right. And then, so you were there, then after a while, when issues started happening, you said you were screwing around on watch.
Yeah.
Right. And they were like, oh, we'll punish you. You're not going to school. And then all this stuff happened leading up to this confession to the LPO, and then the chief's mess saying you're trying to get out of deployment.
Man.
Right.
Right.
Because I'd never shown any signs before.
Right.
Right.
That must have been even harder, like a tougher hit to take.
A gut punch, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Definitely. So, so what happened after that? Did they ever change how their thoughts?
Well, during this somewhat of an interrogation about, I didn't want to go on deployment. That's why I'm making this up and everything. I said a few, key phrases such as, I think that if I leave on deployment, that you're going to have to ship me back. Something else along those lines. And that's when they said, stop, get him to the chaplain.
Wow.
Or to medical.
Right.
Went to squadron doc. And at this point I kind of accepted that, well, it's now out in the open. Let's see if it can be helped.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So we did have a question, from the fleet that kind of was alluding to this a little bit, because they said, I think some sailors would really like to know what mental health conditions are conducive to service and which conditions will get you the boot. And I'm sure at this point in your career, you're thinking the same thing. Is this going to get me out, or can I be helped?
Yeah, that was going through my mind, because you see people getting kicked out for countless things, not just screwing up, but medical wise or admin. Yeah. They just, something doesn't match up, or they have too high of a whatever in the body, or they have certain condition where they get out. And so for a while I thought that if I have a mental condition or something's wrong with my mental health, absolutely, that's what I thought. So keep my mouth shut.
Right. Did you want to get out?
Keep going. Yep.
Did you want to get out though?
No, because I already, when I joined, I decided I want to do something that was more than me.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely. That's how a lot of us joined. I think that's the big thing. Do something bigger than yourself.
So when you went to medical, was it behavior health or was it just a regular doc that you were?
It was the squadron corpsman. It was
Okay.
I want to say he was a senior chief, I believe, as well as there was an officer there as well. So actual medical department.
Okay, so you didn't have to go to the behavior health, because I think that's where a lot of sailors are like, put the brakes on. I'm not going there. I'll go to the doc, but I won't go there.
Well, that's actually the best place, in my opinion, because if you're having any kind of issues, and I've driven some of my guys before over to Portsmouth, and you check them in, they talk to them for a while, you go into emergency room because they're in a life-threatening condition. Mm-hmm. Doesn't mean you have a nail in your head. It doesn't mean that you have to have something internal going on. A life-threatening condition is you could die soon. And if someone is in that low of a state and they're in that poor of a mental health, even though it may be by their own hand, they could die soon. So they treat it as such. So if someone were to call you and just say, I'm having a horrible, horrible time, and they just look completely disheveled and broken, and they start questioning their own existence, why not be safe?
Yeah.
Mm.
Definitely.
And so going back to the fear that a lot of people have that they're going to get the boot, you went through a lot and you're still here.
I am, and I'm actually right now going through therapy.
Really? So how is it? What, regular therapy? Pretty often?
It's a once a week Zoom meeting that's about an hour, and as well as being on antidepressants, anti-anxiety antidepressants.
So
Yeah.
you're on medication and you're going through therapy and you still put on anchors.
Right.
So your advancement wasn't it wasn't hindered because of this medical.
It I didn't start addressing my issues until afterwards, after I had
Okay.
years, because at the last command at dive unit, it was I myself didn't work. I worked alongside divers, but not really with them. I was more with EOD and doing a couple of different testing things with underwater robots, and I kept anything that was going on. It was so busy. The op tempo was so high. I didn't have time to think about what was going on.
Right. Right. But for people that are listening and you have a chief's board to go to or your record to go to, they don't know your medical history.
Not at all.
That's HIPAA. They don't know anything that happened in your medical. They know performance. That's it.
That's correct.
And obviously you were still performing. So you went through the doc, saw the squadron doc at the sub. And
Right.
what happened after that? What did they do?
It was I was kicked off almost immediately, and they cut me orders for Limdu. That happened quite quickly, and that's where I was working at Marmac. And during that time, they set me up with a Navy doc. He was a specialist in psychology, and I also got prescribed antidepressants. The antidepressants weren't really working, so they switched my medication to something else, and I wasn't feeling, talking to the psychologist, I wasn't feeling as though this was working. After a while, he was saying, you should try this, try doing that, and do this. And he said, well, you know what I always do? I just sit down and pray, or I just go out for a run. And all these things are kind of like prepackaged answers,
Right.
just like medication. Take 2 of these and it'll be fine.
Yeah.
And that wasn't working. So to get it out of that, off of Limdu and get back in there, I said, oh yeah, I'm okay now. Everything's super.
So just get back to operational. You pretty much just put the mask on again.
Absolutely.
Wow. And so, what I find that is kind of the common denominator throughout this whole story is that while you are doing things that are high stress, op tempo, very busy, you're almost feeling normal, or not, maybe not normal, but you're almost like, I don't have time to address this medical issue, which we see with a lot of veterans because they get out of the military and then their life slows down and then we lose them. So it's kind of similar to that.
It is. And with mental health, it's not like if you have a bone sticking out of your arm, everyone can see it. You know what's going on. You can, it's visual.
Mhm.
You have a huge pain in your stomach. Okay, it's localized. With mental health, it's everything. You literally, depending on how you're feeling, you could just have no energy whatsoever, and you don't want to do anything.
Like getting up to go to work in the morning is like a struggle.
It was.
Yeah.
Absolutely. There were some times driving that I would think, what if I just closed my eyes and drifted?
Wow.
That way it still looks like an accident,
Yeah, right. And that was going through your head all the time when you had time to think.
Right.
Right. So what was your pay grade when you went on Limdu from the sub?
I was a E5. I was second.
E5. So you said you dealt with this throughout your career till you made chief. So how many years was that?
I'm at 18 right now.
So wow. So you're talking like 15 years ish.
12,
15 years. Where you put on the mask. I'm sorry. Say again.
I would say even when I was back in high school. So
Yeah,
that's 20 years.
Damn. And then you put on the mask from E5 all the way till recently, right?
About that, yeah.
So what was it? What caused you to finally say enough? I need to deal with this, and I'm going to be open about it, and I'm going to share it with other people.
I had it was a little bit before I started my season, and I just picked up chief. I'm feeling great, and it was before I got to my current command while I was still with Mutsu. And one of my old sailors was having a hard time, and I'd opened up to them as well as a lot of my other guys as far as mental health, saying if you have something going on, you need to address it. And I actually told them about my past a little bit, about going through new school and why I'm not on a sub anymore and everything. And by doing that, I've had people text me, message me, and in this case, one of my sailors was standing on top of a parking structure and called me and said, "What made you stop doing it? What made you stop?" And just could tell on the phone, it was dead of night. And that individual was in a very, very bad place. And so I immediately hopped in my truck while still talking to them and sped over there. I may have gone a little too fast and ran a few stop signs, but got there, and while on the phone trying to find a place to park, literally talked them down from doing that, and then got some coffee and took them to Portsmouth to the hospital, and they got seen and doing much better now.
And still in active duty?
They are. Oh yeah, absolutely. They're at a new command and loving it. Absolutely loving it.
That's good to know.
Wow. So then that you think that was the point where you said, all right, it's time for me to.
Not quite, because I was still very busy. Mm-hmm. So I was still just like ignoring it or didn't notice it. And then had someone else give me a call, and then one of my own sailors had to go, and I was on the phone a lot. And it wasn't until dealing with stress some stress at work, which was nothing compared to where I've been at before, but my mind started to race because I didn't have a lot of operational stuff to do. And while driving to work or driving home, I would just think, what's stopping me, and having problems with my wife. And the only reason I didn't was because of my two boys. That was the only reason. And it was at that point that I realized, if there is nothing else going on in my life to make me want to stay here besides those two, I should probably go talk to someone.
And how long ago was that?
That would be, I believe, February of last year.
Oh, so pretty recent, year and a half, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what did you do? You went and talked to chaplain? Did you go to behavioral health, or?
I made an appointment with my PCM, walked in, and during that appointment, I basically said, listen, here's what's going on. I've already been diagnosed with what's called dysthymia, which is basically if you were to draw a happy sad line, this is happy, this is sad. A bipolar person would be like this, right? And most people are kind of, they have good days, they're down a little bit. Well, with dysthymia, you're constantly down here. So while everyone else is riding right here, you're always riding down here.
You're riding in the sad all the time.
Constantly. It's nothing too extreme, but on your bad days, they're bad days.
So yeah, your bad day is really freaking bad compared to a person that doesn't have the condition.
Right.
Wow. So what have you done since then to like keep your spirits up? What have you done?
Well, I never really did the counseling before. Wasn't it kind of felt forced because I'm a second class. I have this lieutenant commander saying, here's what you should do. Sir, okay, sir, whatever you say, sir. It wasn't comfortable.
Yeah.
But at this point, with finding the medication that was working and doing once a week referral out in town, so it was, I'm talking to Jackie about what's going on. So there's no pressure. There's no feeling of I can't really tell them this at work or I'm doing this or whatever because they may.
Right.
Even though it's all in confidence, there's still have that kind of thing in the back of your head saying like, I'm not supposed to tell this person ranked higher than me that I do this or I think about that.
Especially an E5 to a 04 or 05, that could be intimidating, right?
Oh, absolutely. Even though they say, "Hey, I'm Bob," like they're still wearing it on their chest. So
right, definitely, yeah. So, and you could go as far as you want in the Navy. If you want to retire, you can retire. If you don't, you could go to a different command after you leave your current command.
Oh, sure.
Wow. That's so eye-opening. And number two, the second thing that I just really, I've been listening, is that by you talking about it, you've saved a number of lives.
I think so.
And if you had continued to keep silent, like so many of us do, mm-hmm. They wouldn't have reached out to you at that moment, and they may not be here today.
Even if it's that's one of the things you always, being a chief, you're always proud that, your person got Sailor of the Year or they just made rank or something like that. But knowing that they called me is, that's way more important to me.
Definitely. That means you did your job. That means you did your job at the level that you're supposed to because they felt comfortable calling you. And as guys, and I've been in for a long time, you've been in for a minute, even like Jamie's been in for a while. That's the thing about the chief mess has changed. We went from don't talk to us unless they're in trouble to look, talk to us. Let us know what's going on.
Yeah.
And it's definitely people like you have definitely and opened up eyes to the junior sailors and really made them look. If I got a problem, I can talk to Chief.
Absolutely.
And you should definitely be proud of yourself for that because despite what you went through in your younger years, you've done some good for some kids out there.
Yeah, transparency is key.
Definitely. 100%.
Yeah, that's what we're all human beings. We're all people. You take off that uniform and you hang up that hat. You're Bob, Bill, Doug. We all have things going on. Doesn't matter what your rank is. Everyone deals with things differently. Everyone is different.
Yeah.
So by trying to erase that of just because you're a chief or you're a high ranking officer or whatever, if someone's having a problem, talk to me. That was why I shared everything, is to have them. I would, if I ever lost a guy, one of my sailors, from them doing that. I swear, I hope it never happens. But that's going to be a hard day.
Absolutely. And you're continue to be transparent just by coming on this podcast and sharing your story so openly. And you've told us several times, I'm an open book, because we said, hey, anything you don't want to talk about, and you really just dove deep into that, is therapeutic. And hopefully that someone is out there listening saying, if Chief can do it, I can do it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Even if it's just one.
Right.
Just one.
So what is our series is called To Hell with the Stigma. What do you think about stigma? Has it gotten better?
It's gotten better by far. Socially though, it's, I would say, not where in the Navy anyway, where I think it should be. And a big part of that is it's still kind of new, you know. We still have guys that have been in for 30 years that just rub some dirt in it kind of mentality. And now that they're diving more and more into it, I mean the DSM is inside 6 now, and it's being revamped constantly, and that's what psychiatrists and doctors and such, they're looking at that to really help classify and diagnose. And because a lot of people may not have been experienced to it and they haven't seen it or lived it, when someone says I'm having a bad day, they don't know what that means. They're not thinking that way.
Yeah.
So with that being said, have you ever experienced, by you being so transparent with your, with what you've gone through and what you're currently dealing with, have you experienced those side eye or snide comments that we're all so scared to hear?
As far as,
like,
I mean,
just rub, oh, come on, rub some dirt in it.
It's whenever I hear someone say, "Oh, they're just having a bad day. They just need they just need a drink. They just need go for a jog or something like that." They obviously are ignorant. They don't know what they're talking about.
Right.
Maybe they do. Maybe they're just having a bad day and they need to go for a jog. But do they like to run? Do they use exercise as a means to clear their head, or do they watch TV? Everyone's different. So thinking that you can have just doing something, take 2 of these and you'll be fine. Well, you're not putting a Band-Aid on a compound fracture. It's something serious. You need real help. If someone's sitting there and there's, whatever the case, if they're having something that is visually, you can tell they're having problems, you get them some serious help quickly. With mental health, it's not so easy.
Right.
You gotta ask those hard questions.
You got to pry it out of them, really, most of the time.
Yeah.
Like they had to pry it out of you.
They did. Yeah.
Right. Because you were putting on masks every day.
Yeah.
And succeeding, obviously. You made Chief, you were succeeding. And
Yeah.
you still had, but every day, like you said, when you drove to work, why I just close my eyes and see what happens. So obviously, you weren't willing just to give up that information. Easily, right.
So what advice would you give to someone out there that is dealing with this, that is putting on that mask and just kind of going through the motions and keeping up with that high tempo, but when they're in their downtime or their quiet time, their mind is going to that? What advice would you say to them?
I never wanted to burden anyone. I never wanted to show that I needed to take a step back and focus on what I had to. Now the work that I'm not getting done has to be taken up by someone else. I saw it as a sign of weakness. And they always tell you when you're in a plane and the oxygen is gone, you put a mask over yourself before you put it on someone else.
Right.
You can't help anyone when you're hurting. You can't help yourself or your family or your friends or what's so important to some people, their job. You can't be your best unless you're good to go.
Wow.
That you're physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually grounded and stable.
So on the flip side of that, because you're both going through it and also a leader, what would you tell a leader who may have a sailor that's dealing with something like mental health?
I said you know ask the hard questions. Just because you're wearing a rank doesn't mean you're not a human being. You're not a robot. And treat this person as a person. Talk to them like a person. And if you truly care about your people, then you will break down all walls in any attempt of hope to help someone before they do a stupid act that can never be undone.
Wow.
That's perfect. You put it perfect, because that's our job, is to care about everybody that works under us. Actually, not just people, everybody in your command, everybody in the Navy. Right. You put it 100% perfect right there. That was it.
Yeah. We just appreciate you coming on with us and sharing your story and giving your advice from the inside out. Because like you said, if it helps one person, if one person is out there and can feel like they can talk to somebody, then it makes all of this worth it. And is there some resources that you would want to provide as we close out?
Oh, there is. Just make an appointment with your PCM or with your medical department, the chaplain. There's Fleet and Family. I mean, the list goes on and on. Talk to your supervisor. Talk to anyone. Absolutely anyone. If you're having something going on, talk to as many people as you can. Otherwise, it will just get worse.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much, Corey, for being here and giving us that awesome insight. And please hang on after we end. I'd like to talk to you for a minute.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And with that, we wish you fair winds
and following seas.
Man, that was good. That was really good. No, don't do that.
Oh yeah, not bad, not bad. Oh, I screwed up.
Yeah. Click somewhere else, maybe.
Cancel.
There you go.